Welcome everyone to another short update here. Some would call it video log of the Ryzen 7000 here with my 7950X and some memory I got. So as I don't buy everything first time, DDR5 experience, right? And so initially, those who watched this earlier, I was pretty disappointed by this Corsair Vengeance DDR5 5600 kit, because that didn't clock as advertised, right? Sure, it is Intel XMP ready, but nonetheless, memory is memory, should work, right? And given that, I thought, yeah, it's silicon lottery, not so amazing, and sure, compute was amazing, just not memory clocks. And for purpose of testing, only substitute for testing is more testing. I also got that here. Nothing here is a paid advertisement, right? Everything we brought here at Exacode, the sponsor, my company, the sponsor of this video, here for our own use. And so the reason I brought that is because it is way bigger, right? Ideally, I would need 128 gigs. So these are 64 gig modules. And I'm happy to report that this G.Skill Trident Z5 6000 kit, so this 6000 CL3696 at 1.35 volt. Not only clocks advertised, except the BIOS auto-tuned that and isn't stable, but with this dialed in, it is stable at 6000, and the performance is amazing, right? I'm totally shocked. Initially I thought, like, yeah, silicon lottery, not amazing. There is no clock headroom, but boy, have I been wrong, right? So initially, I think this was, let me just check, 111, yeah. So that is the 6000 memory, and I continued to poke around here, and I'll show you some details in a second with the memory. And so obviously that is XMP 6000, and I continued to clock around there in the sub timings to get a little bit more performance out of there, and I managed that. I have here the log of, yes, this is how many attention to detail and dedication. I built the Linux kernel quite a few times, and you see here, this is probably the 15950X. In the future I need to make more notes. And then initial 5600 kit at probably 5400, and so like 4 minutes, not too shabby, right? But since then, with DDR6000 and further subtiming tweaks, and now I'm freaking, I can't believe it. I so thought this AMD silicon stuff is at the edge of thermals and clock and stuff, but with some proper kits. This is also Samsung, I believe, B-Die, and the Corsair Vengeance is SK Hynix, as far as I remember. And yeah, a freaking 14 seconds, you could say that is not really worth it. Some frames in gaming. It's also, in theory, not really worth it, considering how often I compiled the Linux kernel and how often I went to the BIOS. But if you wanted that and epic Threadrip compiled through open source for a year or 5, then maybe it adds up over the time. And also one note, so yeah, Ryzen can clock, so in contrast, it's also why you need more than sample size 1, so now we have sample size 2. And further remarks, even with this Trident, and welcome everyone, even with this Trident Z5 Samsung B-Die, this Aorus BIOS auto-tunes the sub-timings too high, way lower timing than in XMP, resulting in with both, right? So we have now sample size 2, previous video, the quality of PC BIOS, and both DDR5 are with XMP, not Expo, with Intel XMP versus AMD Expo, but I wouldn't count that this AMD Expo profile works better. I've the feeling the Gigabyte Aorus auto tuner thing here is, do I even have that here? Probably here. The what they call auto booster. Looks buggy to me. So with sample size 2, both out of the box with Gigabyte's implementation of DDR5 auto booster using the XMP profile, both unstable, right? You manually need to dial this to the XMP or expo values. Also, in the meantime, it looks like they have, previous video, I pointed out quite some bugs and inconsistencies. Some Gigabyte has fixed, so previously here was written the label JDEC. They changed this since then, apparently with the latest updates or so, to list here XMP1, and so this values indeed reflects the XMP profile, which previous video there was some more confusion. So yeah, with the 6000 being amazing, the crazy thing is, pro tip for you, probably two pro tips for those overclocking memory at home, and I come to the chat in a second. So I spent way too many reboots and kernel reboots with memory subtimings because I simply couldn't believe with my history of this Corsair SK Hynix 5600 memory that wasn't stable at 5600. I thought it's a platform issue. I didn't believe in that this high clock would be stable. In retrospect, I should have also pro tip for you then, maybe first start with a higher system memory multiplier for a higher mega transfers per second DDR clock, double data rate clock, and before you go into the memory subtimings, right? So I wasted basically way too many reboots tuning the subtimings when I first should have tried whether a higher general base clock would work. That's probably a big takeaway for you. Obviously also overvolted that slightly, so the only thing is the SK Hynix Corsair memory has lower voltages. I believe that was 1.25, I believe, and that is 1.35 nominal as per XMP profile, and I overvolted that slightly just for the hope, so 1.36 here, 1.37 there, and now I booted with 1.81, so just to be on the maybe more stable side. And that is certainly the biggest tip there. And also I can't believe how much, and then the subtimings, so I tried this cache latency I can't further overclock with. I could further overclock this at the rated XMP overclock of 6000. With the 6200 overclock I can't further decrease the cache latency, but I could. I didn't bother trying all, obviously that is too many reboots, but TRCP, I didn't try TRCD, but TRP, because from my previous experience I knew already that TRP overclocks a little bit further, TRS, and then here also some I even hired, right? So this is the, in my opinion, bug and implementation deficiency. As this is only 882, it's only a little bit lower than XMP, but I have to manually dial in it anyway, because by default the auto booster, Gigabyte's auto booster there, auto boosts that too low, that is unstable for me, right? So 160 or so. With 6000, with a frequency of 6000, it even had something ridiculously low as auto boosted to 600 or something. With 6200 it doesn't auto boost that high, but so yeah, I decreased this only a little bit, and like for just a tiny % extra performance anyway. Even the auto booster, I think even the TWTRS, I think the auto booster sets here 5 or something, and yeah, not very bothering with that stuff. For the clocks, I'm really shocked how well, I really so can't believe how well Ryzen 7000 Zen 4 take thermals. I can run this apparently stable, and this is only, you've seen this in the thumbnail, the last year's Noctua NH15 whatever, they're air-cooled right now. And even with this, right, I can run this with max CPU boost clock override plus 200, and then curve this is obviously a screenshot. I have this curve optimized so far, look, because the CCX1 gets significantly warmer, it looks to me, like 5 degrees or so. So I forgot to make a screenshot there. But I run this curve optimized also with minus 18, like one CCX all minus 18 and the other minus 20 or so for less voltage. And in general, I have here minus 0.025. This is my currently dialed in stuff. Of course, your mileage may vary, that is Silicon Lottery. I just wanted to point this out, these details, also for you looking for tips and adopting that. And for me, it's a little bit the problem. I need more memory, right? So either I'm not yet sure what I do. So what this translates to is, I should probably show you that also. So in total, that is a, let me just think what I have here. So that is 6. So that is, as far as I remember, improved performance over the SK Hynix. So that is with faster memory. I know what this is. No, this is just today. What is the date here there? So that is the performance for the overclock for 6200 actually. But Geekbench is not a good benchmark, right? This fluctuates significantly. I don't know what they're doing. Each time I run this, you basically need to run it 3 times or so and takes the best values. I just use it out of convenience and comparability to you. Otherwise, I benchmark with building the Linux kernel. That is a much more reliable indicator. As you see, so this is 1550X. Oh, this is whatever that is. All right, this is 4 minutes. So this was launch day with the Corsair, 4 minutes, and then tuning the Corsair SK Hynix, and then also getting the DDR, the 6000 memory. So we are now at 3 minutes 46 with the latest subtiming tweaks. And in Geekbench, maybe I shouldn't do that live. In total, compared to my old system, right? So this is comparing my previous, also carefully dialed in 5950X, and as seen here. And that is with in liquid AIO, Kraken set 63 or so, and their Bauer offset plates with which gave quite some additional boost. So this is my old system, my previous overkill system, 28.4% faster single thread and whopping 47. Initially we had here like 40, and now with this, so basically kind of 7% with fastest versus standard memory. For me, the big crux is I need freaking memory, so 32 gigs of this is way too little. I'm not even sure if I will probably not buy a second one because I need more memory of this. I will guru meditate about this for some weeks. I need to see what I do there, so that is a little bit, I wish, but probably, I mean, certainly this memory are carefully, all of those XMP stuff is carefully binned, so that's probably at the edge of manufacturing possibilities today, I would assume. It's just said that I would prefer 128 freaking gigs. And it's a little bit unfair comparison because the old system here probably run with 96 gigs. So yeah, so that's a little bit not only apples and oranges, but also bananas or so, because yeah, the previous system had 96 gigs of memory. And just showing you the current edge of possibilities and stuff is the current event horizon here. What I can get out of Ryzen here today. Welcome everyone. So yeah, I hope you prefer this shorter summaries and also maybe additional guidance of if you're not regularly doing this overclock. Also, I would probably recommend, I will see how many crashes and spontaneous reboots I get. So far today with the 6200 overclock, none. And in general, when you say why do they not sell this like that? They have stability headroom, right? Like let's call it 10%. And so what you're doing like for heat and compatibility and so on. And obviously, as a manufacturer, you can't advertise your stuff when there is no stability headroom. And what you and me and you and everyone is doing with overclocking is obviously removing this safety margin there. And so we are running, basically we are approaching running that ceiling of running without safety margins here. And probably the hotter it gets, like if we have next summer 35 degrees here Celsius in the office or something of that sort, we might get memory errors and stuff, especially as this is non-ECC memory and so on, which theoretically for professional workloads might also not be recommended, but that is another thing. And this overclocking remarks. Anyway, that is what I get out of my silicon lottery here. If you have any additional tips and feedback, leave in the comments below. Also today, I think the not entry level but mid-tier, probably B 760 motherboard series is launched with, I believe, less than 300 euro, because that board obviously was freaking expensive. So probably want to get that for the most part for regulars. Even I would not really use or need this X670E, all the PCIe lanes and M.2 storage and stuff. It's just what I got for launch day, and now we have it. So welcome everyone. It's Annie, still trying to dial in memory timings. Anthony asks, we are basically answering the questions. No, I got another, I had this dialed in the second day or so. To summarize it, I probably made it clear. I got another high performance kit, and that is what we got out of it. And so that's basically probably currently the limits of that. So it's basically some hours dialing in the first overclock, some hours dialing in. Obviously you can answer your emails and do other stuff while you reboot. I wish the posting would be faster, because obviously that is the biggest bottleneck. Maybe I should check out the Ryzen Master 4. Can you dynamically change this with Ryzen Master on Windows? Anyway. Nerd says for DDR5, SK Hynix should be the better performing one. Well, not for me, not for this, right? This is again sample size 2 now. Well, it's again advertised 5600, but even that wasn't stable. Even with increased voltages, it wasn't stable, right? So it's not like I haven't tried. Obviously, I also overvolted the 1.25, I believe, Corsair Vengeance, SK Hynix. I overvolted it a little bit. I decreased some subtimings. I never had this stable at the advertised 5600. And performance-wise, you can get this performance out of it, but maybe you don't need to, right? Also another pro tip, maybe you don't need to spend your money and time with that, because after all, it's only 14 seconds, and that only counts if you really, for like a year or 3, clobber your CPU with embarrassingly parallel compute load. Otherwise, you will probably not get your return of investment and time back. And again, for some 11 to 1%, so it's like a frame or stuff. Certainly more. Did I even had the I wanted to answer this, yeah. Anyway, so that's it for this video. I hope you learned something, what you can get out of Ryzen. So after, also to summarize it, I should say, after my initial disappointment of the memory situation, I should point out, day one unpacking it, epic thread ripping through open source and Linux kernel, here with our T2 Linux distribution. I was satisfied by the compute performance, right? Just not with the memory stability. It's obviously disappointing. You buy all the stuff new and you can't run it at the advertised speed. Granted, it's extreme overclocking memory profile stuff. But, from initial disappointment, to summarize this, from initial disappointment with the memory situation comes astonishment that just what a difference other vendors' DDR memory can do, and that my silicon clocks memory at 6200, and you can get better performance out of that, like that. So that makes me obviously a way happier camper here on that. And the only instability that remains is a little bit USB glitchiness. It's certainly maybe motherboard related, and the PCIe might actually be power saving. This PCIe 80 PM or whatever that is. I need to mess around with that, but also 2022, your Intel Ethernet chipset isn't freaking stable with PCIe power management, maybe. But anyway, I hope you learned something and enjoy the shorter videos and summaries. Maybe in the future I will even further script that. One last comment there. Got an X330 Ryzen 1800 launched, but waiting around a bit more time. Platform changes. Ryzen had much fact, and yeah, I would do the same. I even still run Phenoms, right? I have there still a Phenom X4 and Phenom X6 and even a Mac Mini and stuff. And the office router is still a, let me think, what is the office router even using? Right, the office router is using the Phenom X4 T whatever, the energy efficient edition 950E, something of that sort. So we use this stuff for like 10 years, and this is also me just getting back into the building stuff after a decade on Apple's pre-built stuff and not wanting to give Apple much more money and some YouTube fun and testing. So yeah, use the stuff as long as you can. Previous video there on my main channel. I would otherwise also run via Centaur unreleased CHA001 stuff that has like Ryzen 1 performance if it were not for the YouTube stuff, and now we can switch to continue comparing the usual. All right, I also computed that, so that is actually some approaching 6% faster for if you, another data point, so from unboxing it, stock performance, not overclocked with this 5600 clocked at 5400. So that is kind of approaching 6% faster, right? So whether that is worth it for you, at least for this open source compile workload, right? So yeah, thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned something. Now some more comments as usual. The problem is always answering some comments and stuff gets longer and longer. Anyway, leave in the comments below what's your take, what are your overclocking advices and stuff, and that's it for this video. Hope you learned something, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe for the next fun videos and reviews, and